It's been a while since I posted my Sicario guide video. After rewatching it, I see a lot of mistakes that I would like to fix. I also realize how poorly made the video is due to my PC specs and the absence of a good microphone. This situation hasn't changed yet, but I learned how to deal with it. Also, my skill has improved and I learned some new tricks with this deck that I would like to share. So that's a remastered version of my Sicario guide, which should give you the basic understanding of what this perk deck is and which also could be helpful on the journey to master Sicario. Let's start with things that you actually need to know before equipping this deck. First of all, you need to have some overall game sense. In the context of Payday 2, this means map knowledge, positioning, moving around the map, when to push for objectives, and making decisions based on the situation you are in as fast as possible. Of course, we won't focus a lot on this because this is just a general skill that you need to play the game, not specifically Sicario. Secondly, you need to know what abilities your perk deck actually gives you. This will help you to determine your limits immediately during the game and make decisions about what you can and can't get away with. We will talk about this right after the small summary. And finally, you must understand how to build around the perk deck. Sometimes you can save skill points on certain skills, because the deck already has an ability you need. As an example, Anarchist. Anarchist has a perk that lets you armor gate without a bullseye. Not to say bullseye is useless on Anarchist since it lets you build armor faster, but if you need to save points for something else, dropping it is an option. Another example would be Stoic, which doesn't benefit from bullseye at all, making it actually useless. Sicario has its own specialties that we will also discuss. Following this simple list, you can play any deck, and if the deck you chose feels nice to use, consider going down the rabbit hole of mastery. Of course, we are focusing on Sicario today, so let's talk about what Sicario gives to its user. The deck starts from the Smoker, giving us a smoke bomb for carrying pops. We will discuss the ways to utilize this throwable later. This new grenade makes a smoke screen that lasts 10 seconds. You and your teammates have a 50% chance to avoid bullets while you are inside the smoke. This value works like a dodge mechanic, but the chance is always the same. It gives an opportunity to share the smoke bomb even if the teammates enjoying the ICTV builds. Also, enemies in smoke will be 50% less accurate. Works fine when you need to face a dozer, especially if that's a skull or minigun. The smoke bomb has 60-second cooldown, but you can reduce it for 1 second by killing an enemy. Unfortunately, you can't reduce the cooldown while the smoke bomb is laid down. Fun fact, Overkill specifically coded this attribute after the deck was introduced, in order to balance the perk deck's capabilities. But this is absolutely idiotic considering that at the same time there was a Kingpin, that it still benefits from the reduction while the injector effect is in place. So what you can see sometimes in public lobbies is a guy with Kingpin and Commander destroying everything being on the injector effect without a break. Balanced by Overkill, nothing else to say. So that attribute is the only thing that could be changed in order to buff Sicario, because it would let using Smoke Bomb even more often, that allows to play more aggressively. Then goes Twitch. You gain plus 20% dodge chance after receiving bullet damage. This effect resets once the player dodges and will not occur for the next 4 seconds. It can also occur more than once at the same time, so be ready to get plus 40 or even plus 60% of dodge from Twitch. But you have to be lucky and unlucky at the same time for something like that. You definitely need to get this extra dodge before changing the cover or just moving in the open area. The third card, Subtle, gives us 15% more dodge chance. The most common dodge buff in the game and a nice addition to Sicario's survivability. Nothing truly interesting over here. Agility Shield. The next perk that allows us to replenish our armor by dodging. It may sound as something overpowered on paper, but in reality we don't have enough dodge to abuse this ability. And the last and only, Unseen Shadow. Twitch and Subtle buffs will be doubled while you are in the smoke screen. Also, while any of your allies are standing in your smoke, they gain plus 10% of dodge chance. That would be a nice addition for a teammate who runs a dodge build. And that's the whole deck. You can look at all the buffs that we receive. What I would like to mention here is that you don't need to focus a lot on bonuses from Twitch and Agility Shield. The work of those two is random, and since you can't control dodge, it's better to focus on the other thing, like the amount of your health before doing something risky. And of course, don't forget using the smoke bomb, which gives even more chances to finish the job. After discussing the deck and looking at all the abilities we have, let's move out to our throwable. Fun fact, the smoke bomb is the only custom perk deck throwable in the game that has its own model. The main buffs that we receive from it are doubled effects from Twitch and Subtle, so when it's paired with 50% chance to avoid the bullet in smoke cloud, it makes the player almost immortal. I would like to say that you can dodge literally everything during these 10 seconds, but I would be wrong. You must avoid everything with a high rate of fire, such as turrets and the big enemy groups. Snipers also can pose a threat, but in my opinion it's way easier to deal with them. but still, it's extremely valuable on high difficulties, where we need to do a lot of tasks as safely as possible. So how to use it right and not waste its power? The list is not as big as you may expect. You can use a smoke bomb to push the main objectives, to help your teammates, to change the cover, protecting yourself while killing hordes of enemies or just holding out in a good cover, or to grab some ammo or convert an enemy. Be sure that you really need the smoke bomb to do some of these actions, because you won't be able to spam with it like with a stoic hip flask or any other custom throwable, so it's better to save this one for just the right moment. What I can't explain to you about the smoke bomb is the targeting. You just need to practice to lay it down in the place you want, it shouldn't be very hard to understand. And U-Motion Dot may help you with this, so don't lose this opportunity. Also, jumping lets you throw the smoke bomb further, in case when it's something you need to do. I would also like to talk about one modification that you must install in order to see through the smoke, called Reduced Sicario Smoke. It makes the smoke cloud less thick and you can finally see something through it. The amount of brain cells this mod saves is superior, so don't even hesitate and go install it. Now, I would also like to teach you some advanced tricks with this robot that you might not think of before. Did you know that you can delay the activation of the smoke screen? Just throw it in a random obstacle over you. It saves around 2 seconds and will be helpful on some maps like Panic Room or First World Ban when fixing a drill. If this trick looks more situational, the next one can be used on any map. So, in fact, Smoke Bomb doesn't care about the walls and ceilings. What can be used to lay down the smoke in controlled area, to come out on enemies with all buffs active. Works fine when you need to come out from the cover safely, to kill enemies before moving on to another place. That's it about the Smoke Bomb. Now let's talk about how to build around this deck. Sicario is one of the perk decks that can be used for almost everything. You can unironically play with ICTV or Berserker and still have enough survivability. One of the reasons is the second ability of Sicario, Twitch, which allows you to stack the dodge without any limits. With ICTV you can abuse this easily because with heavy armor equipped the dodge chance is usually too low to work. Also, don't forget about the Smoker buff, which makes us 50% less likely to be hit. Apart from ICTV, we can benefit from using LBV, which allows to tank 2 light shots. The downside of this is the lower dodge chance, but with our beloved Twitch we won't feel the difference. Also, you can grab Sneaky Bastard, but to be honest I would not waste my points like this. The Berserker skill can also fit into Sicario build, but you must understand how painful it can be. Using Berserker with Sicario is definitely not an option for DS pups, unless you are cauliflower or just starting from the old way to play the game. If you want to gain more damage, there are crits and overkill astes that won't leave you without health and survivability. To sum up, you can use pretty much everything with Sicario even on test sentence, but it may be not as effective as the most common approach. Now skills. I should mention that everyone has his own preferences when it comes to building, and you may hate using some skills, but here I'm not gonna share the build as I did before. I'll just show you essential skills for Sicario. Those skills guarantee you everything that this deck can provide, like health regeneration, armor gating and so on. To make this part a little bit shorter, I won't describe every single skill in detail, you can read the description by yourself. In the controller tree, the essential skills are Joker with the Partners in Crime aced in order to have a converted enemy and access to the top tier skill, Hostage Taker aced. This one provides health regeneration, which Sicario doesn't have. The next skill will be Bullseye from the tank tree. This skill is essential on nearly every deck and Sicario is not an exception. Before grabbing this, I would recommend taking Die Hard or Transporter, depending on which heist you are going to take this build. Resilience aced is also an option, but not as helpful as the skills I mentioned. Next, I would recommend taking Scavenger Basic, if you have a spare point. That's just an optional but pretty helpful skill. Next, Technician. Hardware Expert Basic is actually a solid skill for Sicario that helps to save time while fixing drills in smoke. You can save a few seconds to move away from the drill after fixing it, so that may be a nice investment. Now the most important after the Mastermind tree, Ghost. Here we need to grab Duck and Cover aced. Speaking of the rest of the skills from Artful Dodger, they are completely up to you. Parkour is my personal preference, but I use it only if I have spare points. Sneaky Bastard is a very strange decision because we can gain extra dodge from Twitch. However, it's not a bad skill to take for open maps, but again, only if you have some spare points, and if it gives you more confidence. Speaking of Silent Killer, grab Second Wind and Optical Illusions. Those are essential in almost every DS build, no explanation needed. And that's almost it, now let's speak about 9 lives. That's the only good investment in a Revenant tree. However, you can save on 9 lives aced and try to play without it. Believe me, you will be fine after some practice. What I didn't mention before is equipment skills and Inspire. Those are connected because in order to get Inspire, you have to choose between first aid kits and medic packs. Both are good. First aid kits allow you to do objectives even more safely and survive in case of emergency. However, you have to play very careful in order to not go down. With medic bags, you have an opportunity to restore those downs, but there's a chance to die in smoke while fixing the drill or while moving around. That would be very sad and may ruin your game. And please, don't be dumb and take painkillers in both options. Unlike some decks, Sicario doesn't gain a single breakpoint out of Quick Fix in almost every situation. Save some points for Quick Fix Basic if you can't use the first aid kits without it. So, Inspire. Is it truly good for Sicario that has a smoke bomb? The answer is yes. With the basic version you can revive teammates slightly faster and optimize your smoke bomb usage. With Ace Inspire you are able to completely save your smoke bomb or revive the whole team at once. But you can save points on it if you really want to. There are trip mines, ammo bags and ECM jammers that you can also take with you depending on what you need to use. So traditionally, some tips from me. Don't forget to always have a Joker for extra HP, speed and health regeneration ability. Try to play aggressively but don't kill war and focus more on getting all the objectives done safely and fast. Keep a good distance from enemies and use cover, don't play in the open space. Use smoke wisely and share it with teammates if needed. And don't care about your dodge chance. This deck works on its own, all you need to do is get used to it. Overall, just have fun, that's the best way to play this deck. So, that's it. A few more words about builds. In my opinion, there are a lot of them already on YouTube, Steam and other sources. There is a large build guide of mine with some Sicario builds for everyone, so go check it out too. I hope this guide will help you finally understand that this deck may look hard to play, but in fact it's enjoyable and pretty easy to use and master. I don't know how to finish this video properly, so have fun and stay safe.